The lights in the training room were bright and cold. Dae-ho Kim sat in his chair and looked around at his classmates. They were not like him. Most of them had forearms or scales, or eyes that glowed in the dark. Some were so tall they had to bend down to fit in the room. Others were so small they sat on special high chairs. This was the Galactic Survival Academy. It was built on a space station far from Earth. Here, beings from many different worlds came to learn how to stay alive in dangerous places. Dae-ho was one of only 5 humans in the whole school. At the front of the room stood their teacher. Instructor Velthar was not like any teacher Dae-ho had ever seen on Earth. The alien looked like it was made of living crystal. Its body was clear and sparkled under the lights. When it moved, colors flowed through its body like water. Right now the colors were blue and green, which meant the teacher was calm. Today, we will study the most dangerous world in this part of the galaxy, Velthar said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Planet Keth 9 is a death world. No living thing can survive there without the best technology. Dae-ho leaned forward in his seat. He was interested. On Earth, he had been a survival teacher for the Korean military. He had taught soldiers how to stay alive in mountains, deserts, and jungles. He knew how to make fire with nothing but sticks. He knew which plants were safe to eat and which ones would kill you. But this alien world sounded much worse than anything on Earth. Velthar pressed a button on the wall. The room went dark, and then a huge picture appeared in the air above them. It showed a world that looked like a nightmare. The sky was green and full of poison clouds. Strange plants covered the ground, and they moved like they were alive and hungry. Lightning struck the ground again and again, making the air glow with dangerous energy. The air on Keth 9 will kill you in minutes, Velthar explained. The colors in its body turned orange and red, showing it was excited about the lesson. The temperature changes from very hot to very cold many times each day. The plants want to eat any meat they can find. The ground shakes and breaks apart without warning. Even the rain is made of acid that will burn through metal. A student with 6 legs and purple fur raised one of its arms. Teacher, how does anyone survive there? They do not, Velthar said simply. At least not without spending millions of credits on special equipment. Let me show you. The picture changed. Now it showed different alien beings trying to survive on the deadly world. First was a being that looked like a giant insect. It wore a suit that covered its whole body. The suit had machines that cleaned the air and kept the temperature right. It had special shields to stop the acid rain. But even with all this technology, the insect being only lasted 3 days before it had to leave. Next was a creature that looked like it was made of liquid metal. It could change its shape to avoid danger. It could make its skin hard like armor or soft like water. But the poison in the air was too strong even for it. After 1 day, it started to get sick and had to escape. You see, Velthar said, survival on worlds like Keth 9 requires either very advanced technology or special body parts that took millions of years to grow. Some beings can breathe poison. Others can live in very hot or very cold places. But most of us need machines to help us. Dae-ho looked at the other humans in the room. There was Hana Park, who studied alien plants and animals. Next to her sat Taemin Lee, who was good at building things and fixing machines. They both looked as interested as he felt. Velthar continued the lesson. The Corvin Empire spent 50 years trying to build a base on Keth 9. They used the best technology in the galaxy. They had robots that could repair themselves. They had force fields that could stop anything. They had computers that could predict every danger. But after 2 years, the base was destroyed, and all the workers had to leave. A student that looked like a floating jellyfish made a sound like bubbles popping. This was how its people asked questions. What about using psychic powers to control the environment? Even the Mentari who can move things with their minds cannot change a whole world, Velthar answered. The forces on Keth 9 are too strong. Physics cannot be ignored, even by the most powerful mind. Dae-ho raised his hand. The crystal teacher turned to look at him, and curious yellow colors flowed through its body. Yes, human Dae-ho? What if someone did not use advanced technology or special powers? Dae-ho asked. What if they used simple tools and basic knowledge? The room became very quiet. All the alien students turned to stare at Deho. Some of them made sounds that he was learning meant they thought something was funny. Velthar's body flashed bright white, which Deho had learned meant the teacher was very surprised. Simple tools? Velthar repeated. Human Deho, I do not think you understand. This is not a camping trip on your homeworld. This is a place where the very air will dissolve your lungs. The ground will burn your feet. The plants will try to digest you while you are still alive. How could simple tools help with any of that? Deho stood up. He was not tall compared to most of the aliens in the room, but he stood straight and confident. On Earth, humans have survived in many dangerous places using only basic tools and knowledge. We learned to make fire, build shelters, find food, and heal injuries using things we found around us. Maybe the same ideas could work on other worlds. The alien students were not quiet anymore. They were making all kinds of sounds. Some were clicking, some were buzzing, and some were making noises Deho could not even describe. But he could. Till they all thought his idea was impossible. Velthar's body turned deep purple. Deho had never seen this color before, but it did not look friendly. Human Deho, the teacher said slowly. You are suggesting that primitive tools could succeed where the greatest technology has failed. This is interesting. But I believe you do not truly understand what you are saying. Maybe I do not understand everything, Deho admitted. But I would like to try. Hannah Park stood up next to him. I would like to try too, she said. I know about plants and animals. Maybe I could find useful things even on a dangerous world. Taemin Lee also stood. And I know how to build things. If there are materials available, maybe we could make what we need. Velthar looked at the three humans for a long moment. The colors in its body swirled faster and faster. Finally, it spoke. Very well, I will give you a chance to prove your claim. But not on the real Keth 9. That would be murder. Instead, I will create a perfect simulation of the world. You will have the same challenges, the same dangers, and the same pain. If you fail, you will feel like you are dying. But the safety systems will save you. The teacher moved to a control panel on the wall. You may choose one simple tool each. Nothing electronic, nothing made of advanced materials. Just basic items that your people might have used thousands of years ago. The room began to change. The walls became transparent, and outside, Deho could see the nightmare world of Keth 9 being created around them. The other students moved to a safe viewing area behind thick barriers. Velthar gestured to a table that had appeared near the center of the room. On it were many simple objects. There were pieces of metal, chunks of stone, lengths of rope, and other basic tools. Deho walked to the table and looked at everything carefully. He could hear the other students making betting sounds about how quickly the humans would give up. Some thought they would last minutes. Others thought they would not even last that long. Deho picked up a piece of wood. It was straight and strong, about as long as his arm and as thick as his thumb. It was just a stick. Nothing special about it. But as he held it in his hands, he could feel its potential. This simple piece of wood could become many things. He looked up at Velthar. The alien teacher's body was now flashing between many colors very quickly. Are you ready, human Deho? Velthar asked. Deho gripped his stick firmly and nodded. I am ready. The simulation began. The world around Deho changed in seconds. The safe classroom was gone. Now he stood on cracked ground that looked like it had been burned by fire. The sky above was green and full of moving clouds that looked sick and poisonous. The air smelled terrible, like rotten eggs mixed with burning metal. Hannah Park appeared next to him holding a sharp piece of stone. Taemin Lee was there too, with a coil of rough rope in his hands. 2 more humans had joined them when the simulation started. Jin Woo Choi, who was a doctor, held a small metal bowl. So Young Nam, who knew about growing food, had chosen a bag of seeds. My throat already hurts, Hannah said, coughing. She pointed to a small display that had appeared in front of each of them. It showed their health like in a video game. All of their health bars were slowly getting smaller. The poison air was already making them sick. Daeho looked around quickly. The ground was covered with strange plants. Some looked like normal grass, but they moved without any wind. Others looked like trees, but their branches reached toward the humans like hungry arms. In the distance, he could see large shapes moving. They were too far away to see clearly, but they looked dangerous. "We need shelter and clean air," Daeho said. "But first, we need fire." He kneeled down and began to examine his stick closely. It was dry hardwood, perfect for what he had in mind. He looked around for the right kind of stone or dry material to work with. Behind the protective barriers, the alien students were watching with great interest. Some were making sounds that meant they were laughing. Others were taking bets on how long the humans would last. Velthar stood very still, its crystal body showing colors that moved like a slow rainbow. "Look at the human with the stick," said a student that looked like a large spider. "It thinks rubbing wood will save it from acid rain and poison air." "The small creatures are so foolish," agreed another student that had scales and breathed through holes in its neck. "My people would die in minutes without our breathing machines. These humans have nothing but primitive tools." But Velthar was not laughing. The teacher was watching Daeho very carefully. Something about the humans' behavior was interesting. Instead of panicking or asking for help, Daeho was working with calm focus. Daeho found what he was looking for. There was a type of dry, stringy plant growing near a crack in the ground. He pulled some of it up and crushed it in his hands. It turned into fluffy material that would catch fire easily. He also found a flat piece of stone with a small hole in it. He placed the crushed plant material in a small pile and began to work his stick against the stone. He pushed the stick down into the hole and spun it between his hands as fast as he could. "What is he doing?" asked Jinwoo, who was starting to cough more often. "Making fire the old way," Daeho answered, not stopping his work. "Friction creates heat. Heat creates sparks. Sparks create fire." The other humans watched as Daeho worked. His hands moved up and down the stick, spinning it faster and faster. Smoke began to come from where the wood touched the stone. Then, suddenly, a tiny orange glow appeared in the crushed plant material. Daeho carefully lifted the glowing material and blew on it gently. The glow got brighter. He added more dry plant material piece by piece. Then, with a soft whoosh sound, flames appeared. The alien students became quiet. Even the ones who had been laughing stopped making noise. "Fire," whispered a student that looked like a floating jellyfish. The human made fire with just wood and stone. Daeho quickly gathered more dry material to feed the fire. The flames grew bigger and brighter. Immediately, the humans felt better. The fire was not just giving them light and warmth. The smoke was also helping to clean the poison from the air around them. But there was another benefit that Daeho had hoped for. Flying creatures had been circling high above them. They looked like large bats with too many teeth. But when the smoke from the fire reached them, they flew away quickly. "The fire scares them," Hana said, looking up at the retreating creatures. "Or maybe they do not like the smoke." "Both, I think," Daeho said. He was already working on his stick again. Using his fire, he heated one end of the stick until it was glowing red. Then he pressed the hot end against a stone to make it flat and sharp. "Now we have a spear point." Taemin watched with growing excitement. "You are making the stick into different tools." "One tool, many uses," Daeho agreed. He cooled the sharpened end in some water he found in a small pool. The water hissed and steamed. "But we need more than weapons. We need shelter." So Young pointed to a hill not far away. "There might be a cave over there. I can see dark spots. That could be openings. Too dangerous to explore without knowing what lives there," Jinwoo said. "What if something already calls that cave home?" Daeho looked around again. The temperature was starting to drop. His display showed that night was coming, and with it, much colder air. They needed protection soon. "We build our own shelter," he decided. "Hana, use your stone tool to cut some of those thick plant stems. Taemin, your rope will help us tie things together. Jinwoo, use your bowl to collect rainwater, but be careful. If the rain is acid, we will need to find a way to clean it." The humans began to work together. Daeho used his stick to dig holes in the ground and to pry heavy stones loose. The sharp end cut through tough plant material, The other end worked as a hammer to drive stakes into the ground. As they worked, the alien students watched in growing amazement. The humans were not just surviving. They were solving problems one by one using their simple tools in ways the aliens had never seen before. The stick is becoming many things, Velthar said quietly to itself. Digging tool, cutting tool, weapon, measuring stick, lever. How is this possible? Within 2 hours, the humans had built a small but strong shelter. It was made from plant stems tied together with rope and covered with large leaves. Stones held everything in place. The fire burned, safely in front of the entrance, and smoke drifted up through a hole they had made in the roof. But their biggest test was still coming. As the sun set, the temperature began to drop fast. The alien students could see frost forming on the ground. At the same time, they heard new sounds in the distance, deep growling noises that were getting closer. Predators, Hana whispered, looking at her display. It was showing new information about dangerous creatures approaching their location. Through the green twilight, shapes began to appear. They were large, about the size of earth bears, but they had 6 legs and long tails that ended in sharp spikes. Their mouths were full of teeth and saliva dripped from their jaws. The saliva hissed when it hit the ground, which meant it was probably acid. 6 of them, Timon counted. They are surrounding us. The creatures moved slowly, testing the air with their noses. They were clearly hungry, and the humans looked like easy prey. Deho stood up and held his stick like a spear. The fire-hardened point gleamed in the firelight. Stay together. Keep the fire between us and them. If they attack, aim for their eyes and throats. The largest creature stepped closer. It was twice as big as the others, with scars covering its hide. This was clearly the leader of the pack. It opened its mouth and roared, showing teeth as long as knives. Behind the barriers, some of the alien students looked away. They thought they were about to watch the humans die. But Deho did something unexpected. Instead of waiting for the attack, he grabbed a burning branch from the fire and threw it at the pack leader. The creature jumped back, surprised and angry. Then Deho did something even more surprising. He shouted at the top of his lungs and charged forward with his spear. The pack leader was not expecting this. Prey animals were supposed to run away or hide. They were not supposed to attack first. The creature was confused for just a moment, but that was long enough. Deho's spear point found its target. The sharp, fire-hardened stick went deep into the creature's shoulder. The beast roared in pain and anger, but Deho was already moving. He rolled to the side and grabbed another burning branch. The other humans followed his example. They shouted and waved fire at the remaining creatures. Taemin used his rope to trip one of the beasts. Hana threw stones with deadly accuracy. Jinwoo and So Young worked together to drive 2 more creatures away from their shelter. The pack leader, bleeding from its wound, looked around at its pack. 3 of them were injured. The humans were fighting back with fire and sharp sticks and coordinated attacks. This was not easy prey. This was dangerous prey. With a final angry roar, the pack leader turned and ran into the darkness. The other creatures followed, disappearing into the poisonous night. The humans stood together, breathing hard but victorious. Their simple tools and teamwork had saved them from creatures that could have easily killed them one by one. In the observation area, the alien students were completely silent. Velthar's body was flashing colors that none of them had ever seen before. "Impossible," whispered the spider-like student. "They fought off acid spitters with sticks and fire." "The simulation must be broken," said another. "Primitive tools cannot work against evolved predators." But Velthar knew the simulation was working perfectly. The teacher had watched the humans turn one simple stick into a dozen different tools: firemaker, spear, digging tool, measuring device, lever, club. And more than that, they had used it as a symbol of their determination to survive. As the first night on the deadly. When morning came to the simulation world, Velthar was not happy. The crystal teacher had expected the humans to give up during the night. Instead, they were making breakfast from plants that Hana had identified as safe to eat. They were using tools made from Deho's stick to cook over their fire. 2 more humans had joined the simulation during the night. Hyunsu Kang was an expert on weather and climate. Mi Jin Yu studied how groups of people work together. Both had watched the night's events and wanted to help. This is impossible, Velthar said to the other alien teachers who had come to watch. Simple tools cannot work this well. Elder Zeftar, the oldest teacher in the academy, floated closer to the viewing area. The ancient being looked like a ball of silver light with many thin arms. Perhaps our understanding of survival is too narrow, it said in a voice like distant music. Velthar's body flashed angry red colors. I will increase the difficulty. They succeeded by luck, nothing more. The teacher pressed many buttons on the control panel. Immediately the simulation world became much more dangerous. The sky turned darker, and lightning began to strike the ground every few seconds. The temperature started to change faster, going from very hot to very cold, and back again in minutes. New creatures appeared in the distance, bigger, hungrier, and more dangerous than the ones from the night before. But the worst change was the rain that began to fall. It was not water. It was acid that could burn through metal and stone. Where it touched the ground, smoke rose up in clouds. Now we will see how long their primitive methods last, Velthar said with satisfaction. The humans saw the acid rain coming and quickly moved into their shelter. But Daeho was already thinking ahead. He broke his stick into several pieces, each one designed for a different job. The rain will destroy our fire, Jinwoo said, watching the acid drops hit the ground outside. Not if we move the fire inside safely, Daeho replied. He used one piece of his stick to dig a shallow pit in the center of their shelter. Another piece became a tool for arranging stones around the pit. Hyunsu, you know about weather. How long will this storm last? Hyunsu had been watching the sky carefully. He used a straight piece of wood to measure shadows and angles. The lightning follows a pattern, he said, and the way the clouds move tells me the storm will pass in about 2 hours. But then the temperature will drop very fast. Good, Daeho said. Mi Jin, we need to plan our next moves as a team. What do you think? Mi Jin had been watching how the group worked together. We are good at solving problems when we work as one unit, but we need more tools and better weapons. The creatures outside are getting bigger. Taemin held up his rope, which now had several knots tied in it. I have been thinking about traps. If we cannot fight the big creatures with spears alone, maybe we can catch them or slow them down. So Young had been working with her seeds, trying to grow food plants in small pots made from clay she found near the water source. Some of the local plants might be useful too, she said. That thick vine over there makes a sap that burns very hot, and those purple flowers seem to make animals sleepy when they smell them. The alien students were listening to every word. They could not understand how the humans were making so many plans so quickly. They adapt so fast, said a student that looked like a giant insect. My people need days to plan any change to our survival methods. And they find uses for everything, added another student with 4 arms and blue skin. We only use tools, for one purpose each. They make one tool do many jobs. As the acid rain continued to fall, the humans worked inside their shelter. Daeho's stick pieces became measuring tools, small knives, handles for other tools, and even a simple loom that So Young used to weave plant fibers into stronger rope. When the rain finally stopped, the humans came outside to find their world, completely changed. The acid had killed many of the dangerous plants, but it had also created new problems. The ground was now covered with slippery, smoking mud. The air smelled even worse than before, but the humans saw opportunities where others would see only problems. The dead plants provided new materials for building. The acid-treated ground was now safe from some of the dangerous creatures that lived underground. Look there. Hana pointed to a group of small animals that were drinking from a pool of clean water they had not seen before. The storm uncovered a spring, fresh water. The humans quickly moved their camp closer to the spring. Using tools made from Daeho's stick, they built a better shelter, dug channels to direct the clean water where they needed it, and created a system of traps around their new home. But Velthar was not finished with them. As the afternoon arrived, the teacher added the worst challenge yet. The ground began to shake and crack. Huge holes opened up, revealing underground caverns full of creatures with glowing eyes. At the same time, The electromagnetic storms returned, but much stronger than before. "This is too much," Jin Woo said as another lightning bolt struck close to their shelter. "We cannot fight earthquakes and lightning and monsters all at the same time." But Daeho was smiling. He held up the main piece of his stick, which was now carved with many marks and notches. "We do not fight them separately. We make them fight each other." The humans put their plan into action. They used their understanding of the weather patterns to predict where lightning would strike. Then they used tools made from the stick to create metal conductors that would attract the lightning to specific spots where the underground creatures were trying to climb out. When the electromagnetic storm reached its peak, lightning struck the metal conductors again and again. The electrical energy traveled down into the underground caverns, frightening the creatures back into the depths. At the same time, Taemin used his rope system to create a network of tripwires and snares. When the ground shook from earthquakes, the traps would spring automatically, catching any creatures that tried to take advantage of the chaos. "Incredible," whispered Elder Zeftar. "They are using the environment's dangers against each other." Mijin had been studying the behavior of all the different creatures around them. She noticed that some of the flying animals were afraid of certain ground animals, and some of the ground animals avoided areas where specific plants grew. "We can create safe zones," she told the others. "If we plant the right things in the right places, we can make paths that the dangerous animals will not cross." So Young immediately began working with her seeds and the local plants. Within hours, they had created invisible barriers that guided the movement of creatures away from their camp. As the second night fell, the humans faced their biggest test yet. Velthar had programmed the simulation to send a massive creature, something like a dragon but with armor like a tank and breath that could melt stone. The beast was enormous, too big to trap or scare away. Its roar shook the ground and broke rocks. When it breathed, trees burst into flames. "How do we fight?" "Something like that?" Hyunsu asked. Daeho looked at his stick, now worn smooth from constant use. Then he looked at his friends, each holding tools they had made and improved over 2 days of constant challenges. "We do not fight it," he said quietly. "We convince it to leave." The humans worked together faster than they ever had before. They used everything they had learned about the local environment, the weather patterns, and animal behavior. They created a false trail using scents that would attract the dragon away from their camp. They used their fire and light tools to create illusions that made their small group look like a much larger threat. Most importantly, they used sound. Mijin had noticed that certain frequencies of sound affected different creatures in different ways. Using pieces of Daeho's stick and other materials, they created simple instruments that could produce very specific tones. When the dragon came close to their camp, breathing fire and looking for easy prey, it heard sounds that reminded it of much larger, more dangerous creatures. The illusions made it think it was facing not 5 small humans, but a whole army of unknown beings. The great beast circled their camp 3 times, growing more uncertain with each pass. Finally, it flew away to find easier prey elsewhere. The humans sat around their fire, exhausted but victorious once again. They had survived 2 full days on a world that was supposed to kill them in minutes. In the observation area, the alien, students were no longer making jokes or betting against the humans. They were studying every move, trying to understand how such simple tools could be so effective. Velthar stood very still, its crystal body cycling through colors that no one had ever seen before. The teacher was beginning to realize that everything it knew about survival might be wrong. The simulation paused. For the first time in 2 days, the deadly world around the humans became still and quiet. Velthar had stopped the program to think about what was happening. More alien teachers had arrived during the night. Elder Zeftar was there, along with Instructor Quindal, a famous warrior from the Bruthan species. Dr. Yelnoth, who studied how different minds work, floated near the viewing area taking notes on everything the humans did. "This is impossible," Quindal said, in a voice like grinding stone. The warrior was covered in natural armor and had fought in wars across the galaxy. "I have seen the greatest soldiers from 100 worlds. None of them could survive what these humans have survived using such simple equipment." Dr. Yelnoth's many tentacles moved in patterns that meant deep thought. I must interview them. I need to understand how their minds work. Elder Zeftar gave permission, and the humans were brought to a safe area where they could rest and eat real food. But they were not allowed to leave the simulation area completely. The test was not over. Dr. Yelnoth spoke to each human alone. The alien doctor looked like a large octopus with glowing spots on its skin that changed colors when it was thinking hard. Tell me about your stick, Dr. Yelnoth said to Deho. Why did you choose such a simple tool? Deho sat comfortably, still holding the worn piece of wood. It was much smaller now than when he had started. Pieces had been broken off to make other tools, and the rest was carved and shaped from constant use. You see a piece of wood, Deho said simply. I see possibilities. This stick can be a weapon when I need to fight. It can be a tool when I need to build something. It can be a measuring device when I need to know distances. It can be a symbol when I need to give hope to my friends. Dr. Yelnoth's spots flashed bright yellow, which meant confusion. But how can one object be so many different things? Because I can imagine it being different things, Deho replied. The stick does not change. My use of it changes. My understanding of what it can do changes. That is what makes it powerful. The alien doctor interviewed each human and got similar answers. Hana talked about seeing connections between different types of knowledge. Tai Min explained how every problem was just a puzzle waiting for the right solution. Jinwoo described how helping others made everyone stronger. So Young spoke about growing things and making them better. Hyun-soo talked about patterns and how understanding them could predict the future. Mi-jin explained how working together made impossible things possible. When Dr. Yelnoth shared these conversations with the other teachers, they struggled to understand. My people solve problems by building better technology, said a teacher, whose species looked like living machines. When we face a new challenge, we invent a new machine to handle it. My people adapt by changing our bodies, said another teacher that looked like a shape-shifting blob. When the environment changes, we grow new parts or change our chemistry to match. But these humans do something different, Dr. Yelnoth explained. They change how they think about problems. They do not need new bodies or new machines. They just need new ideas. Velthar had been very quiet during all these discussions. The crystal teacher's body showed colors that meant deep confusion and something that might have been fear. I have spent my whole life teaching survival, Velthar said finally. I have studied every species in the galaxy. I thought I understood what it takes to live in dangerous places. But these humans are showing me that everything I know might be wrong. Elder Zeftar moved closer to its troubled colleague. What frightens you, old friend? If simple tools and creative thinking can work as well as advanced technology, what does that mean for our whole civilization? Velthar asked. We have spent millions of years developing complex solutions to survival problems. We have built machines that can reshape worlds. We have created bodies that can live in space or underwater or inside stars. But maybe we missed something important. What did we miss? Dr. Yelnoth asked. Velthar looked at the humans, who were resting and preparing for the next part of their test. We learned to specialize, they learned to adapt. We made ourselves perfect for specific environments. They made themselves able to handle any environment. Elder Zeftar was quiet for a long moment. You want to continue the test, do you not? Yes, Velthar said. But not here in the simulation. I want to send them to a real world, a real test with real dangers. The other teachers were shocked. That could kill them, Quindal said. The simulation could have killed them too, Velthar replied. But they survived because they are truly adaptable. I need to know if their methods work in the real world, not just in a computer program. Elder Zeftar considered this carefully. There is Moon Keth Prime. It has similar dangers to the simulation world, but it is real. 3 expeditions have failed there, even with the best equipment our civilization can provide. That is perfect, Velthar said. If the humans can survive there, it will prove that their approach to survival is not just luck or simulation error. It will prove that we need to change how we think about staying alive in dangerous places. The decision was made. The humans would be transported to Moonketh Prime for a real survival test. But first, They were told about the risks. This is not a game anymore, Elder Zeftar explained to them. If you fail, you will really die. No safety systems will save you. Are you willing to take this risk? The humans talked among themselves for several minutes. Then Deho stood up, still holding his worn stick. We understand the danger, he said, but we also understand something else. Fear of dying should not stop us from living. If our methods can help others survive in places they never thought possible, then the risk is worth taking. Besides, Hana added with a smile, we have learned a lot in the past 2 days. We know how to work together, how to use simple tools in creative ways, and how to turn problems into solutions. And, Taman said, we have the best teacher possible. He pointed to Deho's stick. This piece of wood has taught us that anything can be useful if you know how to use it properly. The other alien students had been listening to all of this. For the first time since the humans had started their test, the aliens were not making jokes or betting against them. Instead, they were asking questions. Could you teach us how to use simple tools like you do? Asked the spider-like student. Is it possible for our people to learn human survival methods? Asked another with scales and gills. Deho looked around at all the eager alien faces. Anyone can learn, he said. The tools are not magic. The methods are not secret. You just have to be willing to think differently about problems. When we return from Moonketh Prime, Hana added, we would be happy to teach classes here at the academy. If you return, Velthar said quietly. When we return, Deho corrected firmly. We will return because giving up is not an option. This stick has brought us this far. It will take us the rest of the way, too. As the humans prepared for transport to the real moon, word of their achievements spread throughout the academy and beyond. Representatives from other worlds began arriving to watch the test. Some came out of curiosity. Others came because they had their own dangerous worlds where they needed better survival methods. The humans were given the same basic supplies they had started with in the simulation. Each could choose one simple tool. Deho looked at his worn stick, now barely half its original size, covered with carved marks and smooth from constant use. I will keep this one, he said. We have been through too much together to separate now. The transport ship was ready. Moonketh Prime waited in space, a real world full of real dangers. But the humans were not afraid. They had learned that survival was not about having the best equipment or the strongest bodies. It was about having the will to keep trying and the creativity to find new solutions to old problems. As they boarded the ship, Deho turned back to look at all the alien students and teachers who had gathered to watch them leave. Remember, he called out, the most powerful tool in the universe is not made of metal or crystal or energy. It is made of hope and determination, and the refusal to give up. Everything else is just details. The ship's doors closed, and the humans began their journey to their greatest test yet. Moonketh Prime was worse than the simulation. The moment the transport ship landed and opened its doors, the humans could feel the difference. This was not a computer program. This was a real world that wanted to kill them. The air was thick and hard to breathe. The ground was covered with sharp rocks that could cut through thick boots. Strange plants moved without any wind, and their leaves dripped with liquid that made the rocks smoke and bubble. In the distance, the humans could see the remains of the 3 previous expeditions, twisted metal and broken equipment scattered across the landscape. Captain Morgeth, the alien rescue specialist who had brought them to the moon, looked worried. The captain's species looked like large crabs with many eyes, and right now all of those eyes were focused on the dangerous world outside. The last expedition lasted only 6 hours, Captain Morgeth said. They had the best survival suits money, could buy force field generators and emergency teleportation devices, but the environment destroyed their equipment faster than they could repair it. Deho stepped out of the ship first, carrying his worn stick. Behind him came the other humans, each with their simple tools and determination to succeed. How long do we have? Hana asked, looking around at the hostile landscape. The ship will return in 7 days, Captain Morgeth replied. If you are not here when we arrive, we will assume you did not survive. We will be here, Deho said confidently, and we will have something to show you. The ship lifted off, leaving the humans alone on one of the most dangerous worlds in the galaxy. Back at the academy, hundreds of alien students and teachers were watching through long-distance sensors. The images were not very clear, but they could see enough to know what was happening. The humans immediately began doing what they did best, adapting to their environment. Within the first hour, they had identified which plants were most dangerous, which rocks provided the best shelter from the wind, and where they could find water that was not poisonous. Daeho's stick became their most important tool once again, but now it was joined by tools the others had made during their simulation training. They worked together like they had practiced for years, each person knowing exactly what to do without needing to be told. "Look at that," said Dr. Yelnoth, watching the sensor displays back at the academy. "They are not just surviving, they are improving their situation." It was true. By the end of the first day, the humans had built a shelter that was better than anything the previous expeditions had managed. By the second day, they had found ways to purify the poisonous water and identify which of the local creatures were safe to eat. But their greatest achievement came on the third day. Instead of just trying to survive, they began to change their environment to make it easier for anyone who came after them. Using tools made from Daeho's stick and other materials they found, the humans began building permanent improvements. They created paths through the dangerous areas, marked safe zones, and even built a small workshop where future visitors could make repairs to their equipment. "Impossible," whispered Velthar, watching the displays. "They are not just surviving a death world, they are taming it." Ambassador Keltari arrived at the academy on the fourth day. The ambassador represented the Galactic Council, the government that ruled hundreds of worlds and species. News of the human survival test had spread across the galaxy, and everyone was watching to see what would happen. "If these humans succeed," Ambassador Keltari said to Elder Zeftar, "it will change everything. Every world with dangerous environments will want to learn their methods. It could save millions of lives." "And if they fail?" Elder Zeftar asked. "Then we will know that some challenges are truly impossible, no matter how creative the solution." But the humans were not failing. On the fifth day, they did something that shocked everyone watching. They ventured into the most dangerous part of the moon, an area where the air was so poisonous that it could kill in seconds, where the ground was unstable and could collapse without warning, and where creatures lived that had destroyed the equipment of previous expeditions. The humans went there not because they had to, but because they wanted to prove that their methods could work anywhere. Using masks made from local materials, tools created from Daeho's stick, and teamwork that had been perfected through days of practice, they explored the deadly region and returned safely. More importantly, they brought back information about the area that could help future explorers avoid its worst dangers. On the sixth day, Captain Morgeth received a message that changed everything. It was not a call for help or rescue. It was an invitation. "Come early," Daeho's voice said over the communication system. "We have something to show you, and we think you will want to see it." Captain Morgeth was confused but curious. The rescue ship arrived at Moonketh Prime a day early, expecting to find the humans barely alive and desperate to leave. Instead, they found something incredible. The humans had built a small but thriving settlement. There were permanent shelters that could house a dozen people comfortably. There were workshops, with tools for making repairs and improvements. There were gardens where earth plants were growing alongside local species that the humans had learned to cultivate. Most amazing of all, there were detailed maps and guides that explained how anyone could survive on the moon safely, using either advanced technology or simple tools. "We call it Sticktown," Daeho said with a smile, holding up his worn piece of wood. It was now barely as long as his hand, worn smooth from constant use but still strong and useful. Captain Morgeth walked through the settlement in amazement. "How is this possible? 3 expeditions with the best equipment failed here. You succeeded. With primitive tools." "The tools were not primitive," Hana explained. "They were perfectly suited for what we needed to do. We did not need to fight the environment. We needed to understand it and work with it. Besides," Tai Min added, "we had the best possible teacher." He pointed to Daeho's stick. This piece of wood taught us that any problem can be solved if you are willing to think about it differently. The news of the human success spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Within days, representatives from hundreds of worlds were arriving at the Academy, all wanting to learn human survival methods. Velthar experienced what humans might call a complete change of heart. The crystal teacher, who had once believed that only advanced technology could solve survival problems, became the humans' most enthusiastic supporter. I was wrong about everything, Velthar admitted to the assembled alien students and teachers. I thought survival was about having the right equipment for each situation. But these humans have shown me that survival is about having the right attitude for any situation. The Academy created a new department dedicated to teaching human survival philosophy. Deho became the head instructor, with his worn stick as the symbol of the program. Students from across the galaxy came to learn not just how to use simple tools, but how to think creatively about problems. The graduation ceremony was held 3 months later. Hundreds of alien students had learned to see possibilities where they once saw only limitations. They had learned to work together, to adapt quickly to changing situations, and to never give up hope. Deho stood at the front of the Great Hall holding his stick. It was now so small and worn that it barely filled his hand, but it was still strong, still useful, and still full of possibilities. This is not just a piece of wood, he told the graduating class. This is a symbol of the most powerful force in the universe, the refusal to accept that something is impossible. Every one of you has this same power. You just need to learn how to use it. Ambassador Keltari stepped forward to present the humans with the Galactic Medal of Achievement, the highest honor the Council could give. You have not just survived an impossible challenge, the ambassador said. You have shown all of us a new way to think about survival, about cooperation, and about the potential that exists in even the simplest things. As the ceremony ended and the aliens began to return to their home worlds, Velthar approached Deho one last time. I have a question, the crystal teacher said. Your stick is almost gone now. Soon it will be too small to use. What will you do then? Deho smiled and looked around at all the alien students who were now carrying their own simple tools, sticks, stones, pieces of rope, and other basic implements they had learned to see as instruments of unlimited possibility. The stick was never really important, he said. What mattered was learning to see potential where others see limitations. My stick may be almost gone, but the lesson it taught will last forever. He held up the tiny piece of worn wood one last time. Besides, there are always more sticks. The real question is, are there more people willing to learn what they can do with them? Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, beings who had once thought themselves helpless in dangerous environments were picking up simple tools and discovering that they were capable of far more than they had ever imagined. And it all started with one human, one stick, and the simple belief that impossible is just another word for a problem that has not been solved yet. Years later, when explorers from Earth finally made contact with the Galactic Council, they were amazed to find that human survival methods were being taught on thousands of